Sairam, everyone. I would like to offer my humble pranams to the lotus feet of Bhagawan. I want to thank Bhagawan for this beautiful opportunity to speak in front of a very wonderful and divine audience. I also want to thank the SSIOS, the committee members, and of course Sister Vasanta, we dearly call Auntie, for inviting me to speak in front of all for you. And also I want to thank all of the audience, because today is a Sunday, very close to Deepavali also. So, you'd rather spend the time doing something else, but you decided to do and come here, so thank you so much. When Sister Vasanta asked me to speak in this conference about 8 weeks ago, she said, Brother Sabha, you are in the cancer center, you can share some of your experiences on research and looking at patients. I'm a scientist, I don't see patients, but I see them because we go in the elevator together and so on and so forth. Yeah. So I said, okay, because I thought this is in my domain. So what I do is that as I said, I'm a scientist. We try to understand how genes that are mutated means the genes are becoming defective, would lead to cancer formation and therefore affect chemotherapy. And our job is to try and see whether we can fix these genes so that we can find drugs to help people, right? So I said, okay, so that's something in my domain, so I can speak a little bit about this. And 2 weeks later, then she sent me a title. So the title was this, The Relevance of Moderation, His Secret. I say, oh my God, Bhagawan, I've agreed now that they've printed the posters. What am I going to say about moderation? That was a little bit of a challenge, because when you want to speak on something, you need to believe in it and you need to do it. It can't just be a preaching thing, okay? I have a little weakness, right? I like chocolates a lot, yeah? And people who know me also know that I like to drink a lot of coffee and tea, a lot of it, yeah? So if there was a coffee break, I would have been the first fight out there. And the other thing which I like to eat a lot, papadums. We are vegetarians, when you go to Gokul or anywhere, they just give you papadums and you just keep eating, right? Especially it's very difficult when there's a brand of papadum in my name, yeah? So this is, yeah. So our SSC kids call me Uncle Sabha, and this is sent by one of our SSC kids who is a guru, so Uncle Sabha's papadum, right? And there's so many varieties, how can I stop? And say, Swami, you're putting me, So I thought about that. And then I started reading a little bit. Then it struck me. So Swami wanted me to really, get to a moderating lifestyle myself, and then maybe talk about it. The reason I say is that when I started reading, this is one of the first things that I saw, that what Swami said. So this is Swami's quotations, and all Swami's quotations, if it's very long, what I decided to do was to highlight the red color part, which is just you focus on. Yeah? There are two things there, right? Number one, you should reduce gradually your food intake when you're 50 and above. That's roughly my age, yeah? So there was a direct message for me, right? The second thing, he specifically says, people eat papads fried in oil, which have high calorie content. He is very specific. Each papad has 100 to 150 calories, right? When you Google it, you can see 100 grams of papad is 371 calories, right? So Swami is always correct, very, very precise. Right? It's our monkey mind that we have to test, but Swami is always correct. Okay, so I said, okay, so since then, what I decided to do was cut down papads. I have proof, my wife is there, you can ask her, I've really cut down a lot of papads, no chocolates, a lot of coffee and tea have come down, right? I feel good because, I'm trying to do what Swami has said slowly, but surely, hopefully we'll get there. So coming back to the topic, right, on moderation. So it's a huge topic. Where do I start? You have to moderate almost on everything in life except principles. Swami says no moderation on principles. Moderation of principles is vice. Other than that, everything that we do, we are in contact with the environment, we have to moderate. So in 30 minutes, I cannot talk about everything. So I will choose only one topic primarily, which is the food that we take in, because that has a major impact on our health. Right? I'll show you a lot of Swami's quotations and try to show you scientific and clinical evidence that this is all correct. And we don't need to prove that, but it's just good to know. Right? Brother Venkat started by saying that, science starts with an experience and goes upwards, right? And faith is not the first thing. But in spirituality, faith is the first thing. And for all of us, what Swami has said is a Vedavak, right? That's absolute. So what I decided to do was try to think about faith. So whatever Swami has said, I'd put it down there. All the quotations are there. So his secret is his message and his life. And I will show you some analysis because, we have a little bit of a rational mind. It's actually a monkey mind. We want to check everything, right? Whatever is there, you want to Google it and check whether it's really correct, about the purport kind of thing and anything you do. So I'll show you a lot of examples to show that what Swami says is absolutely on the spot. Scientifically, you can actually prove it. And then you have to experience it for yourselves. So I've started experiencing it very slowly. I think with this analysis, which I present to you, hopefully you'll also be able to experience it. Yeah? I will start from the cancer angle because that's what I know a lot about. So from there, I take it further. So when you look at cancer patients, you can actually group them into two groups. The first group is people who get cancers. These are 90% of the cancer patients who get sporadic cancers. What that means is that their family members do not have cancers, but they contract cancer because either they are smoking or they are in contact with some viruses and so on and so forth, right? So 90% of the cases, alcohol and so on and so forth. Then there's a 10% of the people who get familial cancers. Initially, this was thought to be 1-2%, but now with the genomic efforts that we have, it looks like 10% of the population we see have familial cancers. That means they have a gene, a defective gene that they are carrying in the body, that they pass it to the children, and so on and so forth. Familial cancers, right? One of the things that we notice is that not all patients with the genes, mutated genes, as Uncle Dr. Paldal said, will actually succumb to cancer. I'll just show you an example here. So this is a pedigree. So this is scientific, right? A little bit of biology, but I'll take you very slowly through this. So this is a pedigree. So this is generation 1, the grandparents. The box is a male, grandfather, and this is a grandmother, right? The circle is a grandmother, a female. This is the second generation, the parents, and this is the grandchildren, let's say, right? So this family has a mutation in a gene called BRCA1, okay? So it's just a gene, okay? It's a tumor suppressor gene. This is mutated. And when this gene is mutated, the females get breast cancer or ovarian cancer, right? You can see the grandmother had this gene mutated, and she passed away at the age of 49 with ovarian cancer. And this couple had 4 children, 1, 2, 3, and 4. So 3 girls and 1 boy, and this boy married another lady. So of the 3 girls, 1, 2, and 3, you can see 2 of them got cancers, right? Breast cancer and ovarian cancer, but this one did not get any cancer at all, although she is a carrier. Then when this lady who has cancer married an individual, they have a daughter. This daughter also has the gene that is mutated, but it's not carrying cancers, right? So what that means is, although they have the mutated gene in the germline, that means they are passing it through, most of them will get the cancers. It's not 100% the case. There's something beyond the genes, right? That's what I wanted to make the point. And Uncle Paldal actually said exactly that, right? What is that? I'll give you a second example of the same thing. So this gene was made famous by Angelina Jolie. So Angelina Jolie had this mutation, and so she underwent mastectomy so that she will never ever get breast cancer. She also took out her ovaries, right? That's one way to prevent. So the second example I want to show you is a pair of twins. So these are 2 girls, 23 years of age, from Canada. Okay, one has cancer and one does not. So twins means they're exactly identical at the genetic level, right? From the same parents, the same egg split into 2. But how come one got and one didn't? So we don't know this. And because they're staying in the same house, eating the same food, but maybe something beyond the food, maybe something in the mind that is, they have something different that we cannot see, right? But something tells us that there's something beyond the genes that's affecting our predisposition. So these are the cases of cancer predisposition where I show you that we can do something beyond the genes. I will tell you what that is. And this is a case of people going through chemotherapy. So this I see a lot, right? So people get referred through me, so I see a lot of these patients. So when they go through chemotherapy, there's a lot of side effects. Of course, you all know they lose hair. They have a lot of problem in the gut. They cannot eat. They vomit a lot. They don't feel sensation in the toes and the periphery, in the fingers, and so on and so forth. So this is the cause of chemotherapy. That's how life is, right? But then they come out of it. But when you look at people who go through chemotherapy, you see 2 groups of people. The first group is that almost will not do very well. If you take the same group of people who have the same type of cancer and same type of mutation, and they go through the same type of treatment, the outcome can be different, right? One will do very well and succeed and live long, overcome the disease, and the other one will not and succumb. So if you look at the characteristics of the group that does very well, right? That means they come out, and they become well. So you see 3 points, at least that's what I've noticed across. This is almost always the same, right? The first thing is that they eat very well. So they eat well and healthy and then cut down sugars. As opposed to the other group who will say, oh, I cannot eat because I'm vomiting, so I want to give up. So you put a lot of pressure in making them eat, but they still give up. That's one. So they take care of their health. What goes in is very, very controlled. The second thing is that they have an extremely positive attitude. That's very, very important, extremely positive attitude. They always think about after of course, when it strikes, the disease strikes, it's always a question of why me? But after that, as Sister Vasanta said, the will to fight on is the most important thing. So they plan life after the chemotherapy cycles. Okay, I want to do, this is my life, I want to plan for it, right? Very, very positive attitude. And the third thing is that they surround themselves with a lot of positive energy. Right? A lot of happy people, good people, they keep themselves happy. Right? So that basically means that beyond our genes, something that we eat and we feel in the environment is actually protecting us and giving us a better health. Right? What is it? Can we have a handle on it? Right? I'm going to show you an example here. So sorry. Before that, so this is what we see in the patients. So this actually can be replicated in mice studies also. So if you take a bunch of mice, this is just a paper that got just published this year. So what they did was they took a bunch of mice that had cancer, and then to one group of mice, they actually made the mice very happy. So Uncle talked about the reward system, brain's reward system. So they gave a lot of happy things so that the mice are very happy. And the same similar group of mice that had the same cancer, the second group was just left alone. What they saw was that we showed that the anti-tumor immune response can be modulated by the brain's reward system, a key circuitry in emotional process. So these findings introduce a psychological mechanism whereby the patient's physiological mechanism whereby the patient's psychological state can impact the anti-tumor immunity. Basically what it means is that if the patient is happy, the better the response is, right? So this is just beyond that. So there's something in the brain or in the emotions that's going on or the food that is taking. What is it? So people did a study. So this is a fantastic group to study because the genetic material is extremely identical. So what one group did was they took 15 pairs of twins. In these 15 pairs, one twin had cancer, the other did not, right? So this is a fantastic group. So you collected blood from them, they looked at the genes, and what they identified was there was something called an epigenetic change that was found in the group that did not get the cancer, right? So what is the epigenetic change? So epigenetic changes basically influence the disease susceptibility. That's what they concluded. So what is epigenetic change? This is what Uncle alluded to. So a little bit of biology 101. So this is a mother and a father. So we get all our DNA from half from the father and half from the mother, right? So if you look at the mother would have got from her mother and her father, so represent the white and the black. And the father, so also again a white and a black, just very simplistic. When they get married, so there are two possibilities. These two sides can come together, or the black and white can come together, and the white and white, right? So if you look at the genetic material, if one of them, say for example, the mother had a mutation, then the mother could pass it down, say in the black color, can pass it down here or here. So this is what I showed you from the BRCA experience. So this is genetics, you cannot change this. That's how life is. It's almost like fate. But what also happens is there's something called epigenetic change, which I alluded to earlier in the last slide. So what is epigenetic change? That is not something that is fixed like a mutation. Mutation is fixed, is irreversible. It's not reversible at all. That's how it is. But epigenetic change is something that is added onto the DNA and that is reversible. You can put it on there, you can take it out. That's called epigenetic mark. You can go away, you can come back, right? So that is the most interesting thing about this. And the epigenetic change is influenced by many of the emotions. I will show you. You will ask the question, so the father and mother will transmit the genetic change. That's okay. The father and mother will also have epigenetic changes, right? Because they are eating something and then experiencing something. But most of the epigenetic changes in the parents are erased in the embryo. So that embryo develops fresh and the child will have its own epigenetic marks. Okay? So this is the epigenetic change. So environmental factors affect epigenetic changes. So this is a review I've taken from these people, just published not too long ago. So these are all the environmental changes that affect our epigenetic change. And if you look here, you have diet, a psychological state, social interaction, right? So this is the microbiome Uncle alluded to, what's in our gut, exercise, financial status because it gives us pride and all that stuff, diurnal, seasonal correlations, how much we sleep. So everything that is in the environment affects our epigenetic changes. So that's why, if you look at, the fight against breast cancer, the Pink Ribbon Campaign, they say you have physical activity and a healthy weight. I mean, of course, not smoking, alcohol is all understood, but these are the ones which will affect the epigenetic change and will make the person better. Right? So there's something that we can actually do to have or maintain a good health, right? So this is what Swami says. What one meets in life is destiny. How one meets it is self-effort. Essentially, we have the power to do something that will affect us in the future. Right? So this is a conversation between Swami and Hislop on cancer. So Swami says, cancer, it develops often from a small pustule. There is inflammation, some gas, and from this cancer develops. Then Hislop asks, Swami, can cure even terminal cancer cases? Swami says, yes, of course. So he refers to a person. She said, you know this person. She was in advanced stage of cancer. Doctors gave up, gave her only a few days to live. Now she's strong and healthy, right? Swami, then Hislop asks, Swami, does that happen only when the karma is appropriate? Swami says, no. If a person is living Swami's teachings, Swami's grace is automatic. No karma can prevent that. So what is Swami's teachings? That is his secret. How to live our life. And that's what I'm going to talk about, right? So I talked a lot about environment. So what Swami has said about the environment, how are we connected to the environment? We are connected to the environment through two means. One is through our senses, because you have five senses. The eyes, what we see, the ears, what we hear, the tongue, what we eat, what we speak, the nose, what we smell, of course, the body, what we feel, and of course, we have the mind, which is associated with the thoughts and the emotions, right? So Swami actually says, sense control, it is only by sense control and steadfastness that one can lead a happy and healthy life. And Swami also says, prevention of disease should be the goal, right? Sense control is extremely important, right? Swami also says this, So Swami has said everything perfectly. That's why I like so much, so I put all the quotations there. It is essential to observe the principle of moderation in food habits. That's the topic I've chosen today. Work and sleep. Swami says, be always moderate, never indulge in excess. In fact, moderation is the royal road to happiness. Right? So this is Swami's quotations. So when we talk about moderation, it's not only about too much, it's also not too little, it's just about right. Okay, that's the most important thing, right? And not too little or not too much. And as I said, we talk about senses and emotions. For the senses, again, we have five senses. Due to the time limitations, I will only talk about the tongue, and with respect to tongue, only about the food, not about the speech. Swami has said a lot of the speech, but that's probably for another day. And emotions, I'll just touch on very briefly, right? When you look at the five senses, as I showed you five, so when I was looking at this picture, I was looking and looking and looking, and then I felt like Archimedes, right? Because I had a revelation, right? What's the revelation? When I looked at it, I see, wow, cool, man. The eyes and the mouth are the only, tongue are the only ones which can be covered and closed. The rest you cannot cover, right? So I thought that was a fantastic revelation, right? But I did not run out of the bathtub. I can't. Yeah. But I told my wife, as everybody says, the wife brings you down to the ground level, right? Steady state level, right? So this was very, very interesting. So that means these are two of the senses that we need to control. The eyes are shut at least 8 hours when we sleep, at least. After that, it's open. The mouth should be shut at least 8 plus many more, because during the time we sleep, we should be shut, but sometimes we are snoring also. That's a problem. But it should be shut for 8. But most of the other time, unless it's like me when I'm talking, you should also be shut, right? You shouldn't be eating 24/7, right? Or you shouldn't be speaking, right? So I felt very good about it, yeah. But the thing is that Swami has been there all the time, is here all the time, and he has said it in 80-something, right? So he said, among the five senses, two are the most important. They are the eyes and the tongue. because you have the exceptional importance, the Lord has provided them with the means of restraining their activities. So Swami says, you silly man, take note, I have provided natural means for closing the eyes and the mouth. So that's exactly what it is, right? So let's look at the mouth, okay? So the mouth is the gateway to health and happiness. As I said, I will only talk about food, right, not speech. It's only a gateway to have health and happiness if it's actually shut, right? Otherwise, it's not. So Swami said, so we talk about food now. So as the food, so is the mind, right? Food is an important factor which determines the alertness and sloth, the worry and the calm, and the brightness and the dullness. So the type of food you consume decides the degree of concentration you command. So Swami talks about the quality and the quantity. So we look at the food, but the quality and the quantity. So we start with the quantity. Swami says, the intake of too much food is harmful. Swami says, when man observes moderation in diet, he can be safe from most diseases. So you need to control how much you take in. Yeah? Man should exercise his discretion and discrimination in this regards to food. So this is an example of Swami. I think I will run a little bit over time, but I'll just show you. So this is exactly what Swami said around his 69th birthday. Let me tell you how to lead a healthy life. Let me tell you about my own. My weight since my 14th year, so he was around 70 then, all right, has been 108 pounds. It never went up to 109 and never came down to 107. You can lead a healthy life once you achieve this kind of balance and moderation. I never eat even a little bit excess. I observe the principle of moderation, whether I'm invited for food by a millionaire or a pauper, right? So we just wanted to show you Swami eating, right? I think we will enjoy this. This is video 1, please. If you look closely, there are several things to notice, right? Number 1, Swami takes very small bites, very small bites to put in the mouth, right? Okay. He doesn't watch television. That's the second thing, when he's watching, yeah. Maybe he doesn't have, but he doesn't even watch television, look at the screen. Very little. He doesn't talk. He just focuses on the food. Because Swami's life is our message, right? Whatever Swami does, we just follow blindly. That's good enough. Okay. It's so fun to watch Swami eating. You can see there's a lot of padartha here, but he doesn't take a lot. He just take very little, just put very little in the plate, and that's what it is. And he makes sure that all of us are eating also, right, with the eyes. Okay, that's it. Very little, right? We can stop the video. So he eats very little. That's the point, right? So Swami has also given us specific instructions how much we should eat. So he said the light manner in which we sit down to take food, we should also be able to get up in the same light manner. The stomach must not be like a python when after eating you can't even move, right? Right? So how much to eat? Swami says very specifically, divide the stomach into 4 parts. Fill it with 2 parts with food, 1 part with water, and 1 part leave it empty, because then only you can churn. Otherwise you can't even churn, right? Right? Swami says for healthy life, man needs only 1,500 calories per day. Okay, I think we should start counting because we are wearing all these gadgets and we should be able to count, right? So this is about eating too much. But also too little is bad. So Swami says, if we restrict it too little, this will also cause harm and will affect health. Swami talks about fasting because people do fast. So fast 1 day in a week, this is good. But however, Swami also says, fasting may not even be necessary if you're successfully practicing a balance and moderation, right? So you don't even have to fast. As long as you have proper moderation, that's good enough. So overeating leads to obesity. Okay, so we can see in Singapore, the obesity rates are rising now. 1 in 4 Singaporeans are actually obese, and this is rising really high. This is the US figures. In 2030, they expect every other person to be obese, which is very bad. Yeah, Okay, there are many, these are the top 5 causes of death in the world, and of these 5, 4 are related to overeating. Cardiovascular disease, cancer, diabetes, and stroke. I'll go quite fast here, and you can see all these diseases that are rising, they're expected to rise, are all related to overeating, right? So how does overeating leads to disease? I'll give you a little bit of scientific background to this. The first thing is that there's a lot of accumulation of fat. It's not only that when we eat fat, we become fat. When we eat a lot of carbohydrates, this is a biochemical cycle. When you eat a lot of glucose and carbohydrates, it gets converted to fat and it gets stored, right? So you shouldn't eat too much. And the other thing that happens is that when there's too much fat, of course, it clogs your arteries, right? You get heart disease. The other thing that happens when we eat a lot, there's a lot of sugar in the blood. When the sugar in the blood happens, what happens is the pancreas is always producing insulin. So this is from a mouse which is fed with a normal diet, and this is a mouse that was fed with diet that is rich in high fat. Right? You can see the pancreas islets have enlarged. They're producing a lot of insulin because you need to clear all the glucose. At some point, they give up. The cells become not responsive to insulin, and therefore we get diabetes. The last thing that happens is that when you have a lot of sugar, our cells actually grow much faster. So this is an experiment where they're looking at the number of days when the cells are growing and the number of cells that are growing. If you grow the same cells in low glucose, this is how much they grow. When you put on high glucose, they grow so fast. So what happens is that if you have a cell that is mutated, when it's seeing all this glucose, it will start growing fast, and that's what leads to cancer. Right? So sugar, basically, carbohydrate is not good. That's what has been shown. This is qualitative now. This is Singapore data. So our Prime Minister has said 2 years ago that you should cut down sugar. Okay, 6 in 10 Singaporeans actually consume two or more sweetened beverages. This was once me. I hope it's not anymore. Right? And 92% of the food that we eat, the dietary carbohydrates are from highly refined sugars, right? White rice, white sugar, bread, and refined noodles. So that's basically no good. And Swami has said a lot about white sugar. Swami says sugar causes cancer due to the bone char. So bone char is something coming from the cow bone usually that's used for bleaching, and that's not good, basically, right? So what is a substitute? Maybe jaggery is good, because today in the coffee in the morning you had jaggery in there, right? Swami also talked about cooked food. I think I will skip this. Swami basically says, you should not cook the food too much because, all the vitality goes away. So the food we eat is affected by the 3 Ps: the patra, the vessel, the padartha, the produce that we use, and the paka, the process of cooking, right? So the 3 Ps: the pot, the produce, and the process. So that's why we say Brahmarpanam before we eat, to cleanse the whole thing. Right? So can we just show very quickly this second video? Very quickly. So this is very important.
Meat eating fish, they should be abandoned, dropped immediately. But foreigners are used to this non-vegetarian.
దానివల్ల ఎక్కువ క్యాన్సర్ ఇన్సులిన్ ఇవన్నీ రావడానికి అదే కారణం.
This non-vegetarian food is responsible for so many ailments like cancer.
కనుక దానిని మీరు పూర్తి మానండి.
So discontinue this non-vegetarian habit.
ఇంతే కాదు,
not only this,
ఈ మిగడ అనుకుంటున్నారు, మిగడ చీజ్.
Then other point, cheese.
ఆ చీజ్ అంటే చాలా ఇష్టం మేడం.
Oh, you like cheese very much.
ఆ చీజ్ ఎంత పోతుంటుందో అంత మీకు చాలా బలహీనం అయిపోతుంటుంది.
The more and more cheese you consume, you eat, more weak you will be.
కనుక దానిపైన మీరు పోకండి.
So don't run after cheese any longer.
మిల్క్ కూడా ఎక్కువగా తీసుకోకూడదు.
Don't take too much of milk.
టూ మచ్ మిల్క్ ఏంటంటే టూ మచ్ మిల్క్ చాలా చెడ్డది.
Too much of milk is also bad.
మనం లిమిట్గా ఉండాలా.
Everything should be under limits.
మిల్క్ ఎంతనో నీళ్ళని పోయాలి.
You should mix proper combination. It should be 50-50 milk and water.
I think that's it. Yeah. So Swami has said very, very strongly about. Okay, Swami has said about eating meat. It causes cancer, right? And this is WHO statistics. 50 grams of bacon, processed meat, can lead to increase in colorectal cancer by 18%. This is a lot of proven data. I'll just show very fast. So not only colorectal cancer, the more the meat people eat, the more cancers they get. Not only breast cancer, lung cancer, all kind of cancers. Right? So the reason meat eating leads to cancer, I don't have time for the real scientific data. I'll just summarize here. In the red meat, there's the red blood cells. They have the heme that is converted to the nitrous compounds. That is actually very toxic. This is not good. In the processed meat, there's all these nitrate preservatives, right, to ensure that there's no bacteria that is growing, and that is also not good. When it goes and touches, gets into our stomach acids, it is converted to other nitrites, and therefore it's also not good. Right, they causes cancer. These are all carcinogens. Right? Uncle talked about microbiome. It affects the type of bacteria that is in the stomach, which causes imbalance and also leads to irritable bowel disease and colorectal cancer, and of course inflammation as well. So in summary, meat eating is really bad. There's a lot of scientific literature on that. Yeah, but this is I want to touch about a little bit on this milk products, because we take a lot of milk products. What does Swami say? Too much milk is bad. It is rajasic. Swami also said not too much cheese. He says not to completely stop, but it's not too much, right? Okay. The reason is that dairy products contain lactose, which is a type of sugar that needs to be broken down by an enzyme called lactase, right? We all have lactase, but the problem is our lactase enzymes are only active when we are born and basically get shut down at the age of 5. After 5, most of us don't have lactase. So if you are drinking all this lactose containing milk, it's not getting broken down. It's not 100% of the population. But if you look at so that's called lactose intolerance. If you look at the world, if this is basically Africa, India and China, so this is basically the Asian populations, we are all lactose intolerant. That means we cannot take too much lactose. It is different for the Caucasians, right? 82% of the Indians are lactose intolerant. 4 out of 5 of us, right? That means when we take it, immediately we go, there's a diarrhea, right? That's we know. So Swami, so this is, too much milk causes gas, bloating and diarrhea, which is also not good, right? So that's a sugar that is in there, so that cannot be digested. That's the reason. And the second thing is that there's the protein called casein in the milk, right? It promotes cellular growth. If you look at it, when a baby is born, a human baby is born at birth is 3.5 kilos. After drinking mother's milk, the mother's milk only contains 40% casein out of the total. It grows to a weight of 10 kilos, right? But look at a calf. A calf at birth is about 25 to 30 kilos. But within a year, by drinking a cow milk which contains 80% casein, it grows 10 times to 250 kilos. Imagine if you are drinking a lot of milk, it's going to make us grow bigger and bigger and bigger, right? So there's a lot of data which shows is that not good. If you take casein and put on cells, cells will actually grow faster. This is a study, right? The milk protein casein as a proliferation promoting factor in prostate cancer cells. So it's not that it's entirely bad, but you cannot take too much. That's the point I want to make. So to summarize the mouth part, quantity and quality of food has an impact on the mind and health. Swami has said, as the food, so is the mind. We heard a lot about it. As the mind, so are the thoughts. As a thought, is our eggs. So I just want to finish. So the side, I will talk about it in the afternoon in the breakout sessions. I just want to talk a little bit about our emotions. I just want to close this with the emotions, because emotions also affect us. We go through a lot of emotions. So Swami has said, the mind is the key to health and happiness. And so food must be chosen that does not affect the mind adversely. So the interrelation between the body and the mind, the food that we take produces a lot of hormones, they cause epigenetic changes, have an impact on the mind, and the thoughts and emotions also make hormones that will impact the body, right? So most diseases, Swami says, have their origin in the mind. So mental tension is responsible for ill health. So I'll just go through this. Just one more experiment I wanted to show you. I thought it's very, very important, right? So they did an experiment with 710 people across the world. So it's not based on any particular subtype. So what they did was they actually showed different signals, right, which will invoke different emotions, and asked them to color which part of the bodies were actually experiencing a heightened activity or reduced activity, right? And they color coded. There was a very standard data. So this was published in 2013. So this is a color scale. If it's black color, that means there's no emotions. When it's red and yellow, it's a lot of activity that's going on. And if it's blue and lighter blue, there's very reduced activity, right? If you look here, if you look at happiness, you can see it's a lot of red and yellow, which means it's a lot of positive activity across the top of the body. When you look at love, a lot of it. anger also activates a lot of the top part, right? So these emotions are actually activating our body. But if you look at sadness, it actually now weakens the body, right? The legs become feeble. Depression also does the same thing. So emotions are doing something to us. The reason is that emotions actually, there are many hormones. I'll just go very quickly through this. These are the dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, endorphins Uncle talked about. So these are this is called DOSE, easily to remember. So these are important for happiness. And there's the bad hormone, which is cortisol, which is a stress hormone. What do they do? I will not go into too much because I think there's a lack of time right now. It's important to have positive emotions so that you can have a lot of dose, and you have to reduce cortisol, which is a flight and a fright effect. Yeah? I think I'll stop this. What will happen is that the emotions actually lead to a lot of hormone being produced, and therefore lead to a lot of epigenetic changes. So I'm summarizing here right now. I spoke a lot about the tongue, especially with the food, because I wanted to convey the idea that what Swami has said, and to back it up with a lot of scientific data to show analysis, so that we can go back and try it on ourselves as an experience, right? So for every man, 2 things are essential, Swami says: arogya, health, and ananda. So the body is very, very important. I only spoke about the body. I didn't talk about the mind and the spiritual aspect of it. But Swami says, you need to have a proper, good body to achieve all that. Right? If you want to do seva, you need to have a strong body. If you have a very weak body, you can't work on the other higher demands in life. Right? So that's why I focus on the body. So Swami says, it's not too late to start. It doesn't matter. We take very small steps. Right? Nobody can become a saint or sage overnight. We must start early, drive slowly, and reach the goal safely. Right? So I wanted to make it a little bit easier for the people here. So I thought maybe we'll do A, B, C, D, E. This is my last slide before the acknowledgements. So the basics of healthy living. So I said avoid sugar. I think if everybody can go back home and try to reduce sugar, I think that'll be a great thing, right? Continue on life. It's one simple thing to take away. Be happy. Swami always, these emotions, right? Remember the dose I talked about very, very briefly? Control emotions, okay? No cortisol. So, we have a balance, everything is good. Diminish dairy, not completely gone. Remember, we are lactose intolerant, most of us. We can't take it. So diminish dairy, eliminate meat. Swami says, I didn't say that, right? So no meat food, yeah? And finally, fear nothing, right? Acceptance. Swami says it. Fear really nothing, because Swami is always there. Okay? I think this is a very simple basics I think we can take home and try. This is just condensed from Swami's messages, nothing else from here. So I want to stop by thanking people. So of course, Swami for guiding me through all this. Whatever I said correct is because of Swami. If I missed something, I said something wrongly, it's just purely because of my, I'm still learning. So forgive me. SSIOS and the committee members, or the audience for listening patiently. And Brother Raj Kumar, who helped me with all the animations, the opening in the mouth and the closing in the mouth and all that stuff. And these are all the references. I stop here and thank you so much.